Okay, yeah, here we are. Welcome, 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 everybody to Empowerment Memory with yours truly. Okay, so it's the month of February. I can't imagine. February 29 days. So we get an extra bonus day today. That is because we're in a leap year. And when I think about leap year, I think of the fact that it's almost like an acceleration. That's what I think about. So we get to leap and we leap forward. And I'm all about leaping forward. And so I'm really super excited about tonight's topic. It's one of those aha moment. I'm like, I wonder if I can do this. And then it happens. And I'm like, that's because there's a divine intervention in all this. So if you were watching me earlier this month, we did our Ask the Expert, and that topic was on advocacy. So as I was reflecting on what topic we should do today, just God aligned it because the person who I have brought on tonight, I didn't even realize her background when I thought about the topic. So that really tells you that there's something here and it's special. So I was thinking of it and I called it the power of advocacy. And I was reflecting on it, I'm like, okay, what does it mean to say the power of advocacy, right? And when I think about the word, so I Googled advocate, and I was like, okay, who's an advocate? And it's a person who speaks or writes in support or defense of a person or cause. So as a noun, an advocate is a person who represents another person's interests, like a lawyer does. So in fact, the word comes from the courtroom and it's from the Latin word advocare, which means to add a voice. So to an advocate is someone who adds a voice to a cause or a person. And by default, I really believe that God wanted me to use the word advocate for the whole year. So please forgive me if I keep saying it over and over and over, because I think we need a lot of advocates out there. Self-advocates, family advocates, advocate for somebody, stand on behalf of someone, all of it, we all need it. So we want to really dissect this to the best that we can. And tonight I'm so excited with my speaker, who's I'm going to introduce in a few minutes, and she's going to do a fantastic job of telling you more about herself. But as I'm continuing, an advocate is anyone who adds voice by representing someone else. And as parents and as family guardians and as caregivers, we don't have a choice, especially if you have one like mine who really needs somebody to give him his voice. My son Nicholas needs somebody to stand on his behalf. And God relies on me and he relies on me to be his voice. So I was like, okay, as I'm giving you a word of encouragement and empowerment, what word, which you're no woman of faith, I always have to say, my help comes from above. I don't do what I do without the Almighty God. So if you're hearing me and you know what the heck keeps me going, I promise you I do drink coffee, but I promise you I have something bigger than that. And that's the Almighty God. And so I was reflecting on a text that I absolutely love, and it's from the book of Matthew, and it's Matthew 7:7. And it's called the power of ask, ASK. And it said, ask, seek, and knock. So when connecting the two, advocacy is all about asking, all about seeking, and all about knocking, right? And so it says in that Matthew 7:7, it says, if you ask and keep on asking and keep on knocking, and keep on knocking on the door, and it will be open to you. And I'm paraphrasing here. For everyone who asks and everyone who keeps on knocking and everyone who keeps seeking finds. So the point here is when you have someone you love or care about, there's going to be the need to constantly ask for help. There's going to be the need to seek counsel. There's going to be the need to keep knocking on those doors that keep saying no. Keep going, keep knocking. They get tired of you eventually, and they're going to say yes. So that's the point, that we ask and we keep on asking, and it will be given to you. You seek and you will find the answers. You knock and you might knock on just the right door. And that's really, really, really important that we know that. That's why I said to you that I go back to the text that inspires me, that encourages me. And I am a living testimony of the fact that when you keep asking, it happens. So that text in that Bible that I was sharing is really a context about prayer. It really was saying, when Jesus was talking, he paused and just said, just ask, just seek, and knock. And that's really what some of us, when our backs, it feels like it's against the wall. When it feels like you are outnumbered, when you go to a meeting, you go to that IEP meeting, and we're going to talk about that in a minute. It feels that way. You just say, God, please send me somebody that can help me. Or you're not quite sure you're going in the right direction. So you ask. And that's what happened to me. So I happened to have attended a meeting. Now, many of you say, well, how many other meetings are you going to attend? Well, the reality is when you're dealing with the challenges that we're dealing with our family, you're going to have to attend as many different meetings to learn as much different things you can. So I happened to volunteer to be on this committee. And I got onto this committee and I got on late. And, the speaker was talking about her own experience. And I'm like, I wonder if I can ask her a question. So after the meeting, I sent an email. And that email turned into a 30 minutes conversation that absolutely validated me. It validated the decisions I was making. And I was just like, wow, that is the power of advocacy by asking. ASK. Ask, seek, and knock. So I'm going to be bringing on with me today Cathy. This is the person I'm talking about, who I joined her meeting. And by divine inspiration, I emailed her and said, do you have a few minutes? I have a question. Now, of course, didn't really know what I was going to talk to her about. But I was like, you know what? I'm just going to ask. And as we'll have it, that conversation turned into her willingness to come onto the show tonight, because I just sense that what she's going to share with us will inspire someone listening. And just a little bit about herself. When I went online to look, she's actually an advocate, non-attorney advocate. Mind you, I did not know this. All I knew was that I heard her story and I just felt that what she had to share tonight will inspire and encourage. And I also asked her to talk a little bit about one of those committees that I was telling you about, just because I believe that she has a word of encouragement for somebody out there who's going to listen in. So Cathy, I want to say thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you for such a last minute request. And you honored it anyway. So I have a nickname that people give me. They call me G-Force. And because it's Genevieve, and that's my first name. And for folks who may not know, my maiden name is actually Forson, and my husband gave me that name, G-Force. And it comes from the stance of the people refer to me as G-Force because they believe that if I put my mind to something, I actually end up getting what I want. But not because I force people, but it's because I ask humbly. And I asked you if you wouldn't mind coming on tonight, and you said yes. And I want to say thank you. Thank you so much for having this platform as an opportunity to tell people your story. And I'm hoping that if somebody listens or hears you, may be willing to also get on that bandwagon that we're on right now, which is to be a voice for as many people as possible. So I want to turn it over to you, Cathy, just so that you can share a little bit about yourself. So that's Cathy Tamburello, who is an amazing woman, and you will understand that in a few minutes. So on to you, Cathy.
Well, thank you so much for the invitation. I'm really thrilled to be here. I think the more that we can come together and the more we can collaborate, the stronger our voice will become. So I'm going to share my screen and I'm going to tell you a little bit about myself and my family. So I just have to move this down and so I can see where I'm going. And there we go. Okay. So I am Cathy Tamburello. I am first and foremost, I think my biggest claim to fame is that I am Michael Tamburello's mother. I'm also Jenna Tamburello's mother, but we're going to talk a lot about Michael today. So Michael came into this world and presented us with some pretty big challenges pretty quickly. So, aside from being Michael's mother, I'm a retired school administrator for Bergen County Special Services, and I am the state co-chair of the Regional Family Support Planning Council, as well as a private advocate. So, you'll hear a little bit more about that. So, I'm going to really talk about advocacy tonight, and I'm going to talk about it in two parts. I'm going to talk about personal advocacy. So, that was the advocacy that I had to learn quickly and I had to do for my son. Um, and then how as I kind of got that under my belt and Michael got older, I started to look at the global picture of advocacy. How can we elevate my family voice and all family voices so that the people that are making decisions about the supports and services that are available for our loved ones hear our voice and hear our needs? So that's what I'm going to talk a little bit about tonight. So it starts with personal advocacy. I think when you advocate, you have to look at the destination that you're going to. Where do you want to go? So that you can effectively articulate that. And that goes for whether you're advocating at an IEP meeting, an ISP meeting, or if you're advocating for a more global issue. You want to create a vision. In terms of Michael, Michael is 38. And I always want to start with what is going to be the vision for the best possible life for Michael. Um, and how is that life defined from Michael's perspective? And then define the components that I need to make that vision a reality. So this is Michael and the rest of my family, my daughter and son-in-law, and two, but now there are three grandsons. So that's a little bit of an older picture. So Michael is 38 years old, and that is a recent picture. Michael has a very rare syndrome called charge syndrome. He also has autism. He is not verbal. Um, and he has a pretty complex set of medical needs. So I had to learn a lot pretty quickly when Michael was born. He was hospitalized 22 times by the time he was 2. So it has been quite a journey. And I really had to start to think about prioritizing and what was really important and what did I need to work on first because it can become a little overwhelming. There's a lot of issues, and you have to kind of take them one at a time and start with what's most important. So I kind of organize Michael's advocacy efforts, and I still advocate for Michael. I should say that Michael now currently lives in a group home, and he goes to a day program, and he enjoys a number of community-based activities. So I kind of organize this. This is using the Charting the Life course tools, which are great for kind of organizing a person-centered approach to advocacy. And I kind of look at what are his personal strengths, who are the relationships that are important to him, what eligibility services does he need, what does he want to be doing in the community, and what technology is important to him. So I use this as kind of the base, the landing base for my advocacy for Michael. I share this document with all that work with him or are with him so that we are all on the same page and that we all are working towards the same outcomes. And I kind of go a little bit further and kind of look at the domains of his life. Um, and I do this for a number of reasons. I think this type of approach of looking at what is important, what makes for a good life, really applies across the lifespan. I think when you're looking at an IEP, it should be a person-centered approach to the IEP. You should, as a parent, feel comfortable, and it's hard to do that sometimes, but to give your vision of what's important that will make your child a part of your family, a participating member of your family, um, and how the skills and the things that they're teaching in school can generalize to what goes on in the rest of their life. So I kind of break it down into domains and look at what he needs, and again use this as a base to share with people so that they can understand what is important to Michael, what needs to be done for Michael, and what needs to be done with Michael, so that, again, he is always growing and always learning. So as I kind of came through school and Michael became an adult, and I lost that connection of parent groups in a school, which I think bring you together as you move into adulthood. That's sort of a big transition, not only for your loved one, but it was a big transition for me too. So I wanted to start to look at how I could have a voice and collaborate with the voices of other families to make sure that those people that are making the decisions about how services are doled out would hear from families, and families would have an influence on and be part of that decision making. So, a little bit before the pandemic, I attended my first Regional Family Support Planning Council meeting. I live in Essex County, so I went to Council 4. Genevieve, I believe you are Council 5.
That's
Um,
right. Yeah, I'm Council 5.
so, and I listened, and it was interesting to me because at that meeting there was one of our local Essex County assemblyman there, and I was so impressed by that, and I thought, here's somebody who is hearing directly from families. And I went a few more times, and then I was hooked, and I really have found um, a group of families who have the same understanding of what it is like to parent an individual with significant intellectual and developmental disabilities, and who talk out the issues and really then work together to advocate for them. So let me tell you a little bit about the council. Um, the mission of the council is for family members with who have an individual with a developmental disability to exchange information and knowledge about family support services. So we advocate for families and individuals with intellectual and developmental disabilities at the local and state level. We collaborate directly, and this is very, very important. We have the direct ear of the Division of Developmental Disabilities and the Department of Children and Families through the Children's System of Care, CSOC. So we meet every month with Jonathan Siegfried, who is the Assistant Commissioner for DDD, the Division of Developmental Disabilities. We also meet regularly with Molly Green and Melinda Carnesali, who are the Assistant Commissioner and Director of the Children's System of Care. Many of you may know that as Perform Care. We monitor and evaluate systems. So it's really our directive as a member of the Regional Family Support Planning Council to give feedback. They're giving us a program. Is it working? Is it meeting the needs of families? Um, and if not, how can we change that? How can we modify that? The family voice, I'm going to say that over and over again, but the family voice is so important. And we work with policymakers because it's so important that legislatively our legislators understand the issues because they determine the budget. So they need to hear family stories. They need to hear how raising a child with an intellectual and developmental disability or parenting an adult with the same disability, it impacts our lives and how their decisions impact our lives. There are 10 regional councils across the state of New Jersey. So as I mentioned, I am a member of Council 4. Dr. G is a member of Council 5, but you can see there is a council, some are single county councils and some are combined. So you can see that there's, wherever you live, there is a local council, and the councils meet once a month. Most of them are meeting via Zoom, but some are meeting in person, some are doing a hybrid. But I want to explain a little bit of what the council is and how it is oversight. So the council came to be as part of the Family Support Act of 1993. Um, and at that point, there were a number of parents that came together and were very strong advocates. And they really got this into law, that this council must exist, and the divisions that provide these services for our loved ones and supports need to interact with us and need to collaborate with us. So that's been very successful. We operate under the auspices of the New Jersey Council on Developmental Disability. They're sort of our parent organization. And they also provide the funding for our activities. So we do a number, and I'll talk a little bit more about our activities, but we have several subcommittees that meet on a regular basis. So the subcommittees are comprised of members of each of the 10 local councils. So everybody's voice is heard, because what I have learned by being a member of the Regional Family Support Planning Council is the issues that we find in Essex County up in North Jersey can be very different than the issues people find down in Cape May County, or Salem County or Cumberland County, where it's much more rural and people are a little more spread out. Essex County, we're all kind of bunched up together. So we have a Family Advisory Council. That's the one that meets with DDD on a monthly basis. We have the Children's System of Care Collaboration Committee. We have the Public Relations Committee, which is how I met Dr. G. We have a Health and Safety Committee. The Health and Safety Committee, I think, has done something that has been incredibly effective. They put out a white paper about health issues that individuals with intellectual and developmental disabilities have. And because so many of our family members have difficulty expressing how they're feeling, how providers and families can look at behaviors and interpret them to help understand what might be bothering our family members. And we have the Community of Practice Family Action Group, which that is where we focus a lot on person-centered planning, and particularly through using the Charting the Life Course tools. So here's the committees again. So the 10 councils come together as a state council. A woman named Dottie Blakesley is the chairperson. I am the co-chair, vice chair. And then we chair these committees. And as I said, there's a member from all 10 councils on all of the committees. So we hear the perspective of everyone all over the state. So how do we make a difference? Well, we gather information so that we can provide it. I see our communication really as a two-way street. We gather information and we give information. So because we're talking with the divisions that make these big decisions, we're able to make sure that information gets down to our families, but then we're also able to take the feedback from our families and get it to those decision makers. We disseminate information and share information. In Essex County, we did a forum earlier in the year on recreational opportunities for individuals with intellectual and developmental disabilities in our county. We inform families, especially, we did a big push last year. If you have an adult with intellectual and developmental disabilities and you were dependent on Medicaid for service provision, which you are, um, Medicaid unwinding was coming, and that was a big, big, big deal because everybody had to be recertified for Medicaid, because the stop was put on that during the pandemic. So we wanted to make sure people understood that. We wanted to make sure they were up on it. And we did a big, big, big push on that to make sure statewide families understood what was happening. We monitor what's going on. And you'll see that when I talk a little bit about some of the things we're currently actively advocating for. We see a problem and we look at how we can help solve that problem. And we collaborate with other agencies because I think, there's power in numbers and there's powers in collaborating with agencies such as Autism New Jersey, SPAN, Disability Rights New Jersey, the ARC, all of these entities we bring together, and I can talk a little bit about that in a second. And we make recommendations, and obviously we advocate. So on a regular basis, all the councils will conduct public forums. So some of the topics we have done is housing, transition services, which are, such an important topic, and perform care services for kids. That is a system we're working very, very hard with right now. We do outreach activities. Every county has a kayak, not a boat, but a children's interagency coordinating council. And that's where all those agencies come together within your county. So we try to be a voice there so we again can bring that collaboration together. We disseminate surveys to determine needs and what families are experiencing. We do a lot of information sharing sessions, and we collaborate with DDD and the Division of Children and Families and other service providers for that. And we meet with local and county leaders. It is so, so important for our state legislators to understand the needs of our families. Because again, they're going to fund, hopefully, the services and supports that we need. And we have statewide quarterly meetings on specific topics. We have one this Saturday, and it's going to be on insurance options, which gets pretty tricky as your kids get older and become adults, and you're trying to coordinate private insurance with Medicaid. I'm coordinating Medicare and Medicaid, and you know, medical services for our individuals are so important. So it's really important that families understand their insurance options. So what are some of the things we're working on right now? I'm really actively working on. We are actively working on an issue of school bus safety. Unfortunately, there have been 3 tragedies this year on a school bus where children have been lost. I come at this not only as a mom, although my son is long out of the school system, but I also come out as the person that was in charge of 130 children with autism and had to make sure they got on a bus every day and got home safely. There are a lot of flaws in the transportation system for children going to school, particularly children that are in out-of-district placements. We are working actively on improving that. And you will see an article shortly in the DDD publication, Children and Families. And you will also know that we are collaborating directly with the Department of Education to really tighten up and really look at where things are falling through the cracks so that no other family has to deal with such a tragedy. There is a tremendous need to increase the capacity of the children's system of care, otherwise known as perform care. Particularly when families have children in crisis due to significant behaviors. And, that's a tricky system. If you don't know, 10 years ago, that system became part of the Department of Children and Families. So my son's old enough that he never received services from the children's system of care. He was with DDD from birth, but that system split in 2013. And the Department of Children and Families, they got it kind of thrust on them. I don't think they were quite ready. But now, 10 years later, it really is critical that we look at how that system is meeting the needs of our families. They are their mantra is wraparound services, that they wrap around a family. And I think that some of those services need to be rethought, and maybe some of the budgeting needs to be reallocated. And again, that's why it becomes so important that legislators hear our stories. We're working with families to really ensure that the IEPs and the ISPs, if you don't know ISPs, that's the individual service plan when a child becomes an adult. We want that to be a person-centered approach. Those meetings really, in a nutshell, should start with Here is what we want for our individual. Here is our vision for our individual. Um, Effective oversight in provider managed settings. There's been a lot of publicity recently, again, about a young lady who endured some pretty difficult um, surroundings in her group home, and we want to be sure that there is incredible oversight and that this kind of thing does not continue to happen. We want to help families develop strong advocacy skills. So, what you'll find sometimes if you come to our meetings, our monthly local meetings, that if you have something that you're working on that's giving you a little bit of a struggle, you will find a tremendous amount of support and clear direction on how to handle those handle those issues. Because more than likely, whatever the challenge, there's been another family member there who's dealt with something very similar, if not the same thing. And what you will find as a member of our council is that they are the most sharing, caring people because they know the challenges that raising and parenting, whether it's a child or an adult with a disability, they know what obstacles you will face, and they, in most cases, have sometimes found a very good solution and are more than happy to share that and support you in your journey as you go through those same things. And we're working on improving communication between these decision makers and families. So that's why you'll see we do a number of family forums. We're planning one right now on advocacy, and advocacy for a very person-centered approach across the lifespan. And your needs will change as your child grows from being a little kid to a middle school kid to a transition age kid. At my age, um, with a 38-year-old son, I'm starting to think about succession planning and making sure that my daughter, Michael's sister, is ready to take over and is ready someday if I'm not able to manage Michael to be the one that takes over. And I have every confidence that she's going to do an amazing job of that. She's very involved and phones into a lot of the doctor's appointments and meetings and just is right on top. She also happens to be an OT, which I think has been very, very helpful. So you're welcome to attend a council meeting at any time, whether you're a member of the council or not. We welcome everybody. You can come, you can go, however it meets your needs. But I would suggest that you check us out and consider membership. So each council, it has 11 voting members. When an individual would like to become a member, they would apply through the council. All members are volunteers. There's no compensation except for reimbursement for travel and that type of thing. Members may serve on statewide committees, which I think that's where you really feel like you're part of moving that needle. So if you're interested in becoming a Regional Family Support Planning Council member, your council chair, your local council chair will work with you, get you an application, and the council will be more than happy to vote you in. There are also associate members, and those are not voting members. So if you want to check it out for a little bit and kind of feel like you can learn a little bit more about the council, that's another great way to participate. But membership or not, please know that you're welcome to all of our events. And for the most part, the councils publicize agendas, so you'll know what the topic is. So, you want to get to know the people in your council because what you have to say matters, and the information that they're going to be giving to you matters. And that's pretty much it in a nutshell. My email is up there if anybody has any questions. I would love to hear from you. So thank you so much.
Wow, Kathy, thank you so much for a really wonderful presentation. I'm so grateful. We have some few people inside the yeah, Ronka, you're clapping your hands. I'm expecting you to ask questions. Um, so tell us a little bit about, because you mentioned that even though you joined it after your son was much older, is this a council that's only intended just for individuals that or guardians that have adult children, or this spans the whole gamut?
It spans the whole gamut. I think, the issues, of course, change. And but we have family members who are part of the council who have children across the lifespan. So we have families with young kids, we have families with aging adults. Um, and I think it's really important that we represent everyone across the lifespan, because the issues change. I think sometimes it's helpful for the younger families to hear from us older people, um, because it kind of gives you a perspective on what's important.
Mhm,
I find myself sometimes looking back and saying, "Oh, if I could only have a do-over for that."
mm,
And realizing that there were times I focused on things that probably in the end didn't matter all that much.
mm,
Um, for me, looking back, I will always say communication is is the most important thing, that your child is able to communicate and let people know, not only family members, but other people, their wants and their needs. Certainly let them know if something is bothering them or something does, if they don't feel well. That those communication skills are critical. And in all honesty, we still work on them. And what I have found as Michael has aged, and again, he's 38, um, he's still learning
mm,
and he's still progressing. So it doesn't end when school ends. But I think one of the things that we can't emphasize enough is to start with that vision. And don't think of the vision in terms of what services are out there. Think of the vision in terms of what will really make a good life, and then build the supports and services around that. But when I was working, I use this example a lot. So I was a supervisor in a middle and high school for individuals with autism. And families would come in for IEP meetings and they'd say, I want 5 speeches, I want 5 OTs, I want 5 PTs. And I would say, we can talk about that, but what is the goal? What are you trying? What will those 5 speeches help you
mm,
attain? And is there a way that we can do that? Because there's a downside to that. We're going to pull the child out of class a lot. They're going to become a little fragmented. Is there a way that we can, what is the goal and how can we build a program around it to make sure you get to that goal? So I think sometimes families get very lost in focusing on how many services can I get, without starting with articulating a vision. And that really is important. When you're advocating for your individual, I think it does take a little preparation. And I say that knowing how fragmented and how busy my life was when I was raising my 2 children,
mm.
and working full time. But I think if you can spend a little quiet time, which I know is at a premium, um, I think, and really think about what your vision is for your individual and articulate that clearly. That's the starting place of strong advocacy. And that goes for the more global group advocacy too. We need as advocates, as a council, to be able to clearly articulate our asks. What are we asking for? Because if we're not clear enough, it may not happen, or they may give us something that they thought we asked for, but it's not exactly what we were looking for. So I think that putting that thought and that time into advocacy, is important as much as possible.
Yeah, no, thank you for that answer. As you're talking, I'm thinking about parents who, the younger ones anyway, and sometimes they're part of CPAC, which is the special education, special, is it special
Educate it.
education? parent advocacy groups, right?
Yes.
So you have that group, and then now we're talking about the regional council groups as well too. So how are parents able to or can leverage use being part of both or multiple groups? How is this group different?
So I think the difference is a CPAG is, well, certainly a CPAG is going to talk about local issues. They're going to talk about the programs and the services and the supports within that school district. They will also talk about um, just general parental rights. I'm actually going to do a workshop in a local CPAG on how to read your IEP.
Mm.
So they'll do that type of thing. But where I think the council differs is, yes, we're advocating with the Department of Education, but we're also, and I think this is a really critical point right now. We are actively working with the children's system of care, perform care, because those services we hear very often from families are not necessarily meeting the needs and helping them alleviate some of the struggles that they're having with their children at home. So I think being part of the council takes you beyond the school day
Mm.
and looks at the bigger picture of what kind of services do we need to have a good family life with our children.
Right. No, that's I really love that because there's the local issues and then there's the more global issues that we can help impact. And it sounds to me that not only I've found being on the council invaluable. I mean, I also joined right before the pandemic and just started attending the meeting. And a lot of times at that time, some of the information that were being shared there did not necessarily pertain to me. But when I got to that period, at least I knew what to do,
Mhm.
in terms of having learned that information. So what I'm hearing is that there is an opportunity to get advice or counsel. And I remember applying for DDD application and getting stuck and making a phone call to my vice chair, Scott, who then connected me to Paul Aronson. And that was one phone call that turned our whole boat around, right? Where there was a moment of frustration, but because there was a connection that was made, I could reach out to somebody there. So one of the reasons why I wanted you to speak on about this council was the fact that I've spoken about it so many times. So Ronke, who's one of the people on here, had started clapping for you because she knows I've been saying it, the importance of it. But I think as part of the member of the public relation committee, I felt that personal responsibility to make sure that we get the voice out there that most people and everybody can be a part of, or even sit in the meetings. This conversation we're having is can be global because there are people watching all over the world. This particularly pertains to New Jersey, but I imagine that every state has some program of some sort. So the encouragement there will be, hey, go out there and be a part of a council, be a part of a group that can give, feedback and share your personal experiences because that's the only way that the systems can get better, right? And some of us are beneficiaries of the work that has gone ahead of us. And I know that I can sleep better at night because I have an understanding, at least based on what I've known so far, what I need to do for my son, Nicholas. So I thank you so much, Cathy, for your willingness to share. Can you talk a little bit about your other work, which is your non-attorney advocacy work that you do? And you did mention just here about an IEP. So for families listening or those who are interested in learning more, if you don't mind sharing a little bit about that too.
So when I retired as from the school district, after taking a little time off, I I really have sat like I guess I would start by saying I've sat through hundreds of IEP meetings, um, obviously on both sides of the desk, as a mom, and as the school district representative. And so often, it was frustrating to me that before anything was ever said, those meetings would have a feeling of high tension and high stress. And at times I would even say to parents, I feel like this is such a stressful moment, and yet we just need to talk about what we need to do. We haven't denied anything, yet, and we want to hear from you. And if we don't hear from you, we can't know what your priorities are. So I would always try to bring that level down in the meetings. And then I thought I wanted to do something. I didn't want to just sit home and watch Netflix. I wanted to help parents through that process. And what I see so much of, particularly, when I think about the little guys coming out of early intervention and going into a preschool program for the first time, there seems to be an urban legend out there that you have to go and fight.
Mm,
And I think if you start from that point of fighting, um, you're not going to build that good working relationship. And I think it's so important to do that. You're going to be with that district for a long time. And I think very often there is common ground. And that's why I went into advocacy. So what I do is, a family will reach out to me and I will, if they would like to work with me, I'll review their records. I'll make an advocacy plan for them, help them define the issues, go to meetings with them, help them write letters. And, very often what I find with the districts is we have to hear their side of it.
mm,
We have to hear what they see. You have to validate that. And then you have to talk again about, well, what's the goal? What are we trying to achieve? And there are times that districts are blatantly not doing what they should be doing. And then there's parental rights and you have to act. You ask nicely once and then you have to ask. But more often than not, I think we find that we can find that common ground and move forward. And the issues will change. Um, I know that I talk all the time about as Michael reached each transition level, as he came out of preschool, as he went into middle school, as he became transition age, and then as it got very close to the end, where he was going to graduate, my tension level escalated at all of those transition points because I'm sure many of you would agree, you've figured out that one situation. I figured out preschool. I had that. I knew what to do. I knew how it was working. I knew how he would get to school. I knew how he would get home from school. All those little extras I knew. I had the whole babysitting thing while I was working worked out. But now you're going to change the hours and we're going to go to elementary school and it's going to be in a different place and different teachers who don't know him. So I became tense and I had to learn that about myself and realize
mm.
that stress is natural, but that I can't take that out on a staff who has yet to do anything good or bad. And I would also find my teachers coming to me when the kids got close to graduation. They would say, "Why is this parent all of a sudden so upset all the time?" I said, "Because they see a big change coming and they're very, very stressed about it. They don't know what to expect. They don't know what's out there. And that it's coming from that place."
Wow, that's so powerful. And you just articulated exactly what I know for the last few years. I talked about, I used to hear about the falling off the cliff uh,
Yep.
concept of the school bus stops coming when they turn 21, or so for some people they do it earlier at 18. And so when your child is younger, you're like, yeah, 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 that's lifetime away. Then all of a sudden one day you wake up and your child has turned 21.
Yeah.
And that stress level, and I think they can even, I mean, for mine, it was nonverbal, so they can sense the stress and the tension around there. So you've spoken it well for parents to know that we're validating that feeling what you're experiencing of tension is a reality that changes happen. And sometimes we haven't been able to put voice to it. And so that's why we come in very armed, ready to fight. Because it's that mindset of I have to do this all over again. I don't know what's about to happen. That not knowing what's about to happen is really can be very stressful. And this is one of the reasons why we have this platform. This is the reason why you go to these meetings because you hear what other people have gone through and we can validate it that way. So thank you for saying that because I think it's really important as many families and individuals and parents hear it that there is a journey, and at each crossroad or transitional point, it is, yeah, trying to find a roadmap again. The road just ended. Well, that you were familiar with anyway. Now you have to get a whole new map again. Thank God for GPS that is telling us where to go these days, right? If you have to pull out the map. Side note, it's almost like the day that AT&T lost the service. I almost imagine the people driving with their cars, like, where do we find it? What do we do? How do I get a map, right? For that end. So I'm gonna open it up if there's any those of you who are in here, if you have any questions. Mylene, I see that you turn on your camera. Lilia said, thank you so much for the presentation. Ronke said it's very insightful. Sen, I don't know if anybody else is online that has posted, but so this is it. And Mikhail also said this is very informative. Okay, if it's informative, I'm going to challenge all of you guys. Please, please, please. Cathy, what's the website that people can get more information from?
They can go to njcdd.org and they'll see the link for the Regional Family Support Planning Council. So
ncdd.org. Yeah.
njcdd.org, New Jersey Developmental Disability Council.
So please, 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 if you're on here and you're listening, spread the news. You want to be part of the network of people that are making a difference. So, like she said earlier, be a voice. Be a voice on both ends. She said, can you share your email again? Okay,
Sure, I'll
so
put it in the chat.
yeah, she's gonna post it in the chat. So now you can also grab it and put it on the Facebook page. She's put it.
Oh, thank you, Santa.
Yes, so she put the regional
Absolutely.
council on there, and then if you put your email, so here it is, someone who knows it from both sides, and I agree completely. I learned that lesson the hard way when thankfully we were en route to Sunnah School District, and thankfully the superintendent at the time, or no, the director of student services at the time, called us to the side and said, "Can we just have a conversation and let's talk about this?" And that changed the trajectory completely for everything else that we did in district at that time. And I think it's important that we know that we teachers and the professionals who really genuinely care. And sometimes folks maybe misaligned. And that's where, we want to make sure we're all aligned correctly. Now, of course, if the district is not doing what they need to do for you, it's a different story, right? And this
It
is where
is.
knowledge comes in. So I want to say thank you again for being here. Thank you for sharing a bit of her story. Now, coming up on this Saturday is what she was referring to about the presentation that will be done by statewide. And this is available online. So if you go to the website, NJCDD, you can learn more about this presentation about medical insurance. It's really crucial that we know about it. So sign up. You want to be on email listings. So every event that's happening, you get to hear about it. And you might not think you need it, but if you don't think you need it or you don't even have a special needs child, you probably know somebody who does. Please share this information with them and we want them to be able to get the support and services that they need. Mylene, did you have any question or comment? No, you're good? All right. So you're
I don't
right.
want you guys to feel alone. Usually it's like a bunch of empty boxes with just names. I'm like, I can put the camera on.
Good. But you remember you're in Essex County, so that's the council that she is a part of. So
Yeah, reach out anytime and I'd be happy to have you join us. We meet on the first Wednesday of every month and we're meeting via Zoom right now.
there you go.
I missed the beginning of it, so I need to, I guess, if there's a recording.
Yeah, it's a
But I missed
recording.
the
You can
majority
check
of
it
it.
out. You can check it out. But she's from Essex County Council, the council for in Essex County. So you'll be able to be a part of an ongoing meeting. Malini is a very passionate advocate out there too. Yeah, medical coverage for your loved one with disabilities, March 2nd at 10 a.m. Thank you, Senna, for that.
Yes, thank you.
So yeah, no, this is why I said, yeah, let's share the information so as many people can hear about it. I've been blessed by it. And the way it goes is that we're a family on a journey to making sure as many of our loved ones get the supports and relationships and connections that they need. And we make it happen by putting these things out there, right? So as much of it as you can intake, do it. If you need a break, it's okay too. So remember, when I started this conversation earlier, I said, ask, seek, and knock, right? So part of asking is really, really having conversations. Seeking is making connections because as a parent or a loved one, that you're caring for other people as a caregiver, you are going to get tired sometimes. And you just need that word of encouragement. And you get it from being connected to other people who are walking the journey. And knock at doors, because when you knock at the doors, that's when you find the resources that are necessary that you may need. Resources may mean even people in your community, people in your church, people in your synagogues, wherever it is that you get to, is very important that you know that. So I hope you've been blessed by this time today. Once again, Cathy, very, very, very appreciative of your time, taking the opportunity to even put a presentation together. I thought it was just going to be a conversation, but you went above and beyond. So I really appreciate you. So if you're out there and you want to connect more with her, her information is on our Facebook page. You can grab it. And also, obviously, you can go on njcdd.org. I'm a member of the council. That's why I'm here to promote it. And I'm saying, if you see me with my hat on, push, 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 is because I'm connected to people like Cathy who are also sharing their stories and don't mind sharing with you. So on that note, we want to just encourage you to just check out for all the upcoming events. April 21st is our Bowling for Autism event. We're hosting it over in Perth Amboy at the Majestic. And as you know, proceeds of the bowl-a-thon goes to support our families. We have a family grant program that we're running right now. We're giving $1,000 each to 25 families. So $25,000 will go out to families this year. The applications are open. It's on our website, mygoalinc.org. Please, please, please check it out. If you know families that can benefit, they can apply. We have a committee that reviews the applications, and that money goes out to support. So remember, we exist to support families facing autism and other intellectual disabilities throughout their lifespan, and we do so by creating connections, and we provide support. That's what we exist. We've been doing it for 15 years. So Cathy, once again, thank you. Thank you everyone for
Pleasure.
watching.
What a nice event. What a nice group. You
Well,
are a force of nature, Dr. G.
that's why I said, well, you joined the bandwagon and now you know why. I told you I didn't realize you were a professional advocate, but I see why. That once again, just to kind of put it out there, that night when I spoke with you, just validated the goal of what I've been doing. And so I want to appreciate you for your time and for being here tonight. And thank you all for joining us tonight. Have a great night, everyone. Good night.
Bye.
God bless. Bye-bye.